that was heartbreaking. These two innocent girls were viciously murdered.
A brutal killing.
Both victims were killed by asphyxiation, cord wrapped around their throats.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
Everything was a possibility. Stalkers, someone they met at home.
You want to try to narrow in who's the last person in that apartment.
When you find out that they have some aggressive tendencies, that makes them even more of a suspect.
The truth will be revealed.
There was something psychologically wrong with him. Dealing with people like that, anything's liable to happen.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. New York, a place where anything can happen and where anyone can become someone.
It's a big city with plenty of opportunities.
This was the start. If you can't make it in New York, you can't make it anywhere.
But behind the glamour lies darkness.
West Harlem in 1992.
It was during the holiday season coming up, December 19th, close to Christmas, and the call came into the homicide squad.
There was a complaint from the woman who lived in the apartment below about the water coming from the apartment above. The super went up to investigate, knocked on the door, no answer.
The apartment belongs to 20-year-old Nikki Silas and 19-year-old Britney Rojas.
After not getting any answer, he decided to go from the roof down to the fire escape. And when he looked into the apartment, he seen who he knew as Nikki laying in the bed. He thought she was asleep, so he was banging on the window. Banging hard and got no response, so he forced the window open. And he went to touch her to wake her up and realized she wasn't gonna wake up. She was dead. And he went towards the front where the water leak was coming from, and he found Britney's body floating in the tub.
He picked up the phone and called the police.
Detectives Daryl Hayes and Rudy Hall of Manhattan North Homicide are assigned to the case. Inside the apartment, they find a grisly scene.
As you enter the apartment door from the hallway, to the left is a bathroom. You can see that there was a struggle. You see the sink dislodged and on the floor. And then you see Britney Rojas in the tub. She had her cord wrapped around her neck. We weren't sure at that time if that was the cause of her death. Was it that she was strangled to death, or did she drown? As you walk to the bedroom where Nikki Silas is on the bed, you can see that she was disrobed and she was dead. You couldn't tell at that time if there was a rape. You just seen her laying there. It was like she was asleep. And same thing, Nikki had a ligature cord around her throat.
That is strange when you find two bodies in one location. But this whole case was strange. I think they were good girls. They didn't deserve to die. By no means.
I think in any homicide case, a team of detectives see the side of the victim's family that's suffering for the loss of their child. And it's our job to put closure to it.
To solve the murder, detectives must piece together the last 24 hours of the victims' lives.
The ME gives you a time of death as close as they can, based on the temperature of the body, based on post-mortem. But at the time, during the initial crime scene, we didn't know that. We tried to get noise complaints if anybody heard anything. Tried a timeline of when this water leak started coming into the apartment. We found on the counter there was a receipt. On the receipt, it named a particular store in the neighborhood a couple of blocks away.
The receipt is time-stamped, December 19th, 1:15 a.m.
A team of detectives went there to talk to the night clerk that remember a female coming in to purchase some groceries about that time. So we knew that they were alive from the point of the receipt going forward.
The information gathered allows them to place time of death between 1:30 and 3 a.m.
The medical examiner told us that both victims were killed by asphyxiation. The assumption was that Britney was attacked sexually, but we just didn't have the concrete evidence. She was submerged in water, so if there was any DNA that was available, it was contaminated.
Detectives do find DNA evidence on Nikki Silas's body.
The ME couldn't say for sure that that DNA would be from the victim having sex with the murderer, or is it that she had sex with her boyfriend and he went off to go to work and then somebody came in and attacked her.
They send the sample from Nikki to the lab and continue to process the scene.
The apartment to me looked like it was in disarray. You could see that somebody ransacked the place. Maybe they came in and the burglar was already in the apartment.
But it wasn't a straight out robbery. The way the bodies were found, if it's a robbery, you don't hang around to rape anybody. You want to get your loot and get out.
It showed no signs of forced entry at the front door. So the question comes, okay, then they either had access to the apartment or were allowed in by one or two or both people living in the apartment.
Police then discover a handwritten note at the foot of Nikki's bed.
It said, train directions to and from Queens to Manhattan, and getting off at the exit closer to their house. We were determining if somebody was visiting the apartment that never been there before, that they needed directions. We didn't know if that was something old or new. You couldn't put a timeline. It didn't have a date. How significant at that time, we couldn't determine.
In most instances, a murderer doesn't just kill random people. There's usually a connection. And if there's more than one dead body at a scene, usually the police can determine whether or not the second person was just an accident, essentially, in the wrong place at the wrong time.
With no way to know which one was targeted, detectives start to trace both girls' contacts.
In most homicide cases, we always request the phone logs. You want to try to narrow in who's the last person that somebody in that apartment spoke to. Then you want to talk to that person or persons and say, well, did they indicate they were having problems with anybody? Normally, you can get them back in a short period of time. Now, keep in mind, this is December 19th. It's close to the holiday season. And at that particular time, they had an active kidnapping homicide case going on. So it delayed the phone records coming back on a timely fashion.
They now have the heartbreaking task of contacting the families.
It's hard to make notifications to a family member saying that somebody's deceased or passed away. You want to make sure that there's other family members and a support mechanism there that could help, because you don't know how they're going to react to it.
I was just going to bed and the doorbell rang. There were 2 policemen there. And they said there's been an accident in New York. And at the time, I couldn't click it. I just couldn't think, well, Nikki doesn't drive, so it couldn't have been a car accident. And then when they came in and they told us, It was like somebody pulled the rug out from under me. And my husband just fell apart.
Detectives learned Nikki was a college student from Massachusetts, and Britney was from Queens.
Britney moved in with Nikki after Thanksgiving. Her mother still lived in Brazil. I just think she was all alone as far as having a parent around.
The family had mentioned that Nikki was into dancing and doing videos, and it was determined that she did a video with one of the Caribbean artists named Shabba Ranks.
They had ambitions of being in the show business world, the dancing and all the glitter that goes along with that.
I think that was her goal, to make contacts. If she got in the video, maybe she would have a chance to do some acting. She had been home that Thanksgiving, and she told me that she couldn't pay the rent anymore. So her plan was to finish college there for the semester and come home. She came home on the 22nd, but not the way I expected. She came home in a casket.
Detectives also interview Nikki's brother Damon about his last contact with her.
About 9 p.m., Nikki's on the phone with her brother who called her to see what's going on, and she's telling him that she's got company, they're playing cards. No names were given. Now we gotta find who that person or persons are.
Nikki's family does have an idea of who it could be.
When the police told me she had been murdered, both Damon and I said, it's gotta be Cooley.
Cooley was Nikki's boyfriend.
Nikki telling her mother that Cooley was a vicious person that attacked her and was abusive to her.
I said, I didn't bring you into this world to be abused. I said, you need to get away from that. But she wasn't gonna leave New York, as far as Cooley was concerned.
Usually the boyfriend or the husband is the first person you look at as being a suspect. And when you find out that they have some aggressive tendencies insofar as domestic violence, that makes them even more of a suspect.
A man named Cooley has quickly become a person of interest in the double homicide of Britney Rojas and Nikki Silas.
He had a previous record for domestic violence. He's the prime person you want to find first. We found out that this person worked at the Apollo Theater in Harlem. When he's brought in, initially, we challenged him with the things we found out. He was forthcoming, saying, yes, we had relationship problems. We were arguing all the time, but he denied ever putting his hands on her. He denied ever threatening her. But yet, he did say that he didn't want her to be around people, socializing with people, and felt that with her being in the video business and meeting celebrities, he might lose her to somebody else that was more successful. You say to yourself, you know, hey, he has an anger issue, but is it enough to say that he would be willing to commit this type of murder?
They need to know where he was between 1 and 3 a.m.
Cooley had an alibi that had to be checked and verified. It was sketchy. It wasn't enough to say he couldn't have made this time frame of when we believe the homicide took place.
Detectives try another tack to link him to the crime.
When we said, well, we want DNA, he didn't hesitate. But it could be, hey, that's my girlfriend, of course we had sex, so you can have my DNA, I didn't do anything wrong.
Despite his shaky alibi and a potential explanation for the presence of his DNA, it's still not enough to physically place him at the scene.
We went back to the neighborhood and we discovered someone who noticed something interesting in the apartment building or in the area. Daniel Ramirez was the assistant super. He would have known who belonged in the building and who didn't. He's very observant.
He happened to be there that particular day, a little later than 1 in the morning.
Ramirez reports that he sees these two African Americans leaving the building. One looks very upset. He's so agitated to the point that he throws up, leaving the building.
The other gentleman was carrying what he believed to be either a duffel bag or a laundry bag with a safe that was protruding out of this bag. Daniel Ramirez helped the sketch be composed of what he saw of these individuals going down the stairs and out the building. Cooley had to stand in lineup, which he consented to. And Mr. Ramirez observed the lineup with Cooley in it, and he did not identify Cooley in the lineup as a person or persons of the two people going out of the building during the time that we believe the homicide occurred. After the interview, the results came in that it wasn't his DNA. That proved to us at that time that he wasn't what caused her death.
With Cooley ruled out, detectives revisit the crime scene evidence. They examine letters addressed to Britney Rojas.
We found out that Britney was in communication with an inmate that was being held at Rikers Island, knowing that he was incarcerated at the time. And that proved that he couldn't have done it. But maybe he says, you know what, I know that they felt threatened or they were having some personal issues in their life that might have been the reason that they were killed. So we had to go interview this person and have a conversation to see if he might have been aware of any reason anybody would have been after attacking Britney or maybe her roommate, Nikki Salas. He said he loved her. He claims he didn't know that she was having any problems with anybody that he might have been aware of. But during the interview, it was mentioned that one of the locations that Britney and Nikki worked was in a Peep show called Show World.
It's a bombshell for detectives, and the Times Square location is well known to police.
When the Navy comes in with the big ships, the sailors come in, the first thing they do is they go to Show World, put their money in, they want to see dancers on stage, take their clothes off. And that's where a lot of these celebrity dance artists and stuff would go to pick girls that sit in on a video shoot and perform and dance.
When investigators discovered that these two girls were more than students, that they were working at this well-established club, for them it opened up a whole host of other potential suspects. Establishments like this attract a certain criminal element.
So my initial thought was whatever happened to them came from Show World.
They learn it was here where Britney and Nikki first met and decided to become roommates.
Some people believe it's a lot of seedy females that work there, but 90% of the females that do work there are school kids. You know, going to school, trying to support their education. They got a percentage of what slots money came in, and that's how they made their money. It pays well. On an average night, they can make $400 or $500.
But while Nikki and Britney lived on the straight and narrow, many of the customers did not.
You have people that come in there that have drug abuse. You have people that come in there that are sex crime perpetrators.
Everything was a possibility. Stalkers, someone they met.
The visitors, the men who are there, can see who's making the money. And it's not very difficult to imagine a scenario where the patrons of a strip club will follow home a dancer and attempt to rob them.
When you're dealing with people like that, anything's liable to happen.
Detectives question the girls' co-workers.
Britney had a regular person who she used to date from the show world. An admirer, an older person.
He was giving her a lot of attention and cash. The term was sugar daddy.
Britney was known to spend time with him outside the club.
One of the theories was that because he knew where she lived, that maybe he was there on that particular night and something went wrong. Maybe he says, hey, you can't be around nobody else. You're gonna do what I say. I'm giving you money.
If she refused, he got angry, and he killed her.
And if Nikki was a witness, it might be you're forced to make that decision to take her out because she know who you are.
Rape is a very serious offense. There's a high incentive for you to make sure that nobody in that apartment is left to tell the police what you've done.
You want to find this person. You want to know who he is. What was he about?
The discovery that a sugar daddy dated murder victim Britney Rojas has detectives staking out a Times Square nightclub.
He comes there frequently enough that we felt comfortable to pick him up whenever he showed up. You want to talk to him, try to find out where he was during the night of this particular case. What was his interest in her? Was it solely a sex relation, or was it just, hey, you felt real bad, she's struggling, and you have money, and you just wanted to give her money for her to spend time with you? So the first thing you're looking for is any facial marks, scratches, any indication that they look like they've been in a fight. Because it was a severe fight in there. You know, she put up a struggle. He had no injuries, he didn't show signs. He was really upset that she was dead.
When someone's being extremely cooperative with police, it can either be taken in a number of ways. It can be a flag that that person is trying to get their attention away from somebody else. Or it could be that they sincerely want to work with the police to try to get something solved.
You ask him a question, he answered it as best he could. I'm not gonna say it was a love relationship, but he really liked her. He felt real bad and said, if there's anything that I could do to help solve this, I'd be willing to. And the alibi that he gave was substantial enough to prove that he wasn't a part of the crime. He couldn't have made it to that location and did what he had to do and get back. His DNA didn't match Nikki's, and he was ruled out.
It was heartbreaking because these two innocent girls were viciously murdered, and there wasn't much to go on as far as clues or evidence.
Every time we thought we had something, they were ruled out. Every time we thought we had some valuable information, it turned out to be no good. So you're trying to put the time pieces together, and there was no other fingerprints in there that we can come across. So the case is what we call stale. You're back to ground zero.
For Nikki's already grieving family, what the case uncovers only causes more pain.
When they told me that she was working at Show World, I was shocked. I felt awful. I wished she had called me and asked me for some money. But the media made a circus out of it. Every weekend, there would be something on the front page. And they were always negative, as if Nikki, because she was in Show World, that's why she was murdered. That was all hurtful. But that was not what made Nikki Show World. It just wasn't. She was a good soul.
After 2 weeks of waiting, detectives finally received Nikki and Britney's phone records.
We noticed that a phone call was made from the apartment to a number listed in Queens around the time the murders occurred. And we were very curious about what that phone call was about and the substance of it.
And keep in mind, we had the directions that was given to how to get to Nikki and Britney's apartment from Queens. I want to go out and invade people's privacy, find out what they don't want people to know, and get the results, and that's what I do.
So we head off to the address where the phone is located. We knock on the door, the female answers, and we announce who we are and why we were there. We had a phone call being made to that apartment. She said she didn't remember, but she said, well, there was a voice message left on the voicemail from somebody that was looking for my boyfriend, Tommy, who's not here right now. And this person sounded very agitated and excited. And we asked if we could listen to the voice message. And she told us she no longer had the phone or the tape. Gave us a story about having an argument with her boyfriend, and she throwing the phone at him, the phone broke, and it was in the garbage.
Or is the phone being thrown away because you know what the end result was and you was trying to get rid of the evidence?
So we had the emergency service search the dumpster. We found the phone, but with no tape.
This call may be the only link to the killer, and only one person can tell detectives what was said.
She didn't know this person, but her boyfriend would know. Later, we got a phone call from the boyfriend, Tommy. We had listened to the message, and he identified the person on the other end as a friend of his by the name of Antoine Adbury, and he lived at an address in Queens.
Antoine was calling him to complain that the person he was with was bugging out, attacking these females in this apartment, and he didn't want no parts of it, and he was out of there. So now you got somebody that can say, we're in that apartment on the day of the incident. 2 girls are dead, and the only one that can speak on anything is Antoine Adbury. But is he a part of it?
Detectives dig into the background of a potential witness to the brutal murders of Nikki and Britney.
Once we had the name Antoine Adbury, we could do a criminal check. Nothing stuck out to say he was a wanted person or a known felon that got locked up numerous times. We found out that he had gotten a job at one of the premier department stores in Queens, that his mother was an upper-level manager there. So his life was positive. And myself and Detective Hall, now that we got where Antoine lives, we take a ride out to Queens. He wasn't shocked to me, you know, when we came in. He didn't look like, you know, somebody that has something to hide. He treated us like gentlemen.
I'm a good interviewer, and I'm a good judge of character. It's something that you develop over the years by talking to different people. You can usually tell when someone's hiding something.
Detectives ask Antoine about the murders.
He first denied knowing that they were killed. He said he didn't hear it or see it on the news.
Then, they confront him with a phone call.
He was trying to play it down. He just wouldn't give up too much information. It was like pulling teeth with him. You know, he'd give you what you want to hear at times, and that was true.
He didn't come out readily and make the commissions on his own.
As the questioning continues, Detective Hayes spots something interesting.
On the left of the living room floor is a silhouette of a safe. That safe that we see is what Ramirez sees in a duffel bag or a laundry bag of one of them leaving the building. That might be the safe that we're talking about. I cannot say how shocking it was that it would be in visible sight.
In a murder investigation, there's really no such thing as coincidence. It's the result of a lot of legwork, a lot of door knocking, interviewing suspects. It's something that happens because you make your own luck.
We asked him about the safe. He says, it's not mine. That's my roommate's. He brought that stuff here. And we went around and around until he finally admitted that he did make the phone call.
That says that Antoine Adbury is at that apartment. So we put him in the car to go back to the 2-4 precinct. He started realizing that he's in trouble and that I might as well just tell the truth.
Antoine tells detectives his roommate, Kevin Ladson, met Britney in Queens a few weeks earlier.
He was coming out of getting a haircut, ran into her in front of the barbershop and struck up a conversation. They exchanged phone numbers. Some weeks to a month later, he bumps into her again and said, well, I thought you was gonna call me. She said, look, yeah, we can go out, but I got a roommate now. He said, oh, that's strange. I got a guy living with me too. Maybe we could do a double date. Basically, they set up this day to go out, December 18th.
Britney had given Kevin written directions for the train.
Those were the directions that we found to how to get to Nikki and Britney's apartment from his house in Queens.
Antoine says that he and Kevin got to the girls' apartment around 8 p.m. They spent several hours playing cards. Then, Antoine claims, late in the evening, he left the apartment with Nikki.
And when they came back, they found Britney's body, and Kevin was all agitated.
He tells us that Kevin snatches Nikki, and that's when Antoine starts making the call. And when he makes that call and he leaves that voice message, he says he runs out the apartment, and he made it clear, I left that apartment, I didn't leave with anything, I ran out there with nothing. He don't know exactly what time Kevin came down, but he was already out before Kevin. But the question always is, besides calling your friend, why didn't you call the police?
People put themselves into a crime scene and realize they have to get themselves out with minimal guilt.
So we don't know. Did they both do it?
The only way to verify Antoine's story is to find the other man who was there that night.
We went back to Queens looking for his roommate, Kevin Ladson. We found him on the street heading toward the apartment. And we scooped him up and brought him back to 24th Precinct. We walked him by Antoine to make sure that they both know that they were both there.
Officers will often place someone against the other person. Well, what they'll do is they'll go talk to one person, say, did you know this person mentioned this about you? It may not always be true, but it's a way to try to find out who the true culprits are.
Kevin was upset because he thought Antoine was stalking. He was more upset about that than anything else.
There's a huge amount of contempt on the streets for rats. If you talk to the police, or you get called out as being a rat, even if you're not one, your life can be in danger.
Detectives need to break Kevin's silence and discover who really killed Nikki and Britney.
He didn't show any signs of remorse. He didn't show any signs like he didn't care. He just was one of those like, all right, if y'all ain't got no evidence, I'm out of here. He was cold.
We was telling him, you know, you're gonna go down. This is your opportunity to come clean because your buddies are giving it all up and he's blaming you. He never broke them. Kept denying. Where in Adbury was very open, remorseful. Kevin was just the opposite, which made me believe Antoine more than I did Kevin.
Investigators have one more card to play in Daniel Ramirez. The witness, who can possibly place both of them at the scene.
It was a positive hit on both of them. Daniel Ramirez says that both Kevin Ladson and Antoine Adbury were the two people he saw leaving the building. Adbury with nothing in his hands. and throwing up, looking distressed. And Kevin with the duffel bag with the safe, you could say, wow, that's what we were waiting for. It gave probable cause that we know that both of them were involved at the time of the homicide.
This confirms Kevin was outside the building, but it's still not enough to prove which of them did it. They now need something that puts him inside the girl's home.
Antoine told us that Kevin Ladson took a lot of music CDs that the girls had in the apartment, jewelry, and one of the biggest things was the coat that Kevin gave this girl, saying he bought it for her for Christmas. Well, once we knew the coat came from the girlfriend, we had her statement saying that she received this coat from him. He was presented with that, but he couldn't deny it because he knows he gave it to her. You would have thought Kevin would have rolled over and said, wait, I didn't do this by myself. I did Nikki, but he did Britney. And that never surfaced.
The only thing I can surmise is that he didn't want to snitch on his friend. We told him, well, we got DNA there, so you might as well tell us the truth.
Once police have you in their sights, if you, as a suspect, think you're getting away with murder, you're sadly mistaken.
Detectives Daryl Hayes and Rudy Hall close in on key evidence needed to deliver justice for Nikki and Britney.
When they got the DNA results back, it's what I suspected. DA was a match with Kevin Ladson.
He knew then, I think, that he was going to see freedom, that it was done.
Detectives arrest and charge Kevin Ladson with double homicide, as well as criminal possession of stolen property.
Antoine pled guilty to burglary. If he had picked up the phone and called the police, I think the DA would have looked at him in a different light.
They now know the details behind the last 24 hours of the young women's lives and how a casual date brought them into the orbit of a heartless killer.
Antoine leaves Queens with Kevin. They get on the train. They decide they're going to the movies and maybe go somewhere to eat. That was the initial plan. But as they get to the station of 94th Street where the girls live, and they come out, it's pouring down rain. So when they get to the apartment, they said, well, you know what? Let's just wait the rain to go past and then we'll go out. So in the meantime, they're socializing, gathering, and it just never stopped. It just kept raining, kept raining. Nikki's on the phone with her brother who called her to see what's going on, and she's telling him that she's got company, they're playing cards. They decide, look, instead of y'all going back in this rain because y'all came through the subway and it's still raining, y'all can stay here tonight. They decide Britney and Nikki gonna sleep in one room, and Antoine and Kevin will be in another room. It started unraveling when they decided to sleep in separate rooms. So in Kevin's mind, what? We sleep in separate rooms. I don't want to sleep with him, I want to sleep with you, being Britney. Nikki decides that she's gonna walk her dog, and Antoine Adbury goes out with her. And Nikki purchased something from a store. While Nikki and Antoine are outside walking the dog, it's apparent that Kevin Ladson attacks Britney in the bathroom. And a struggle ensued, which caused the sink in the bathroom to dismount off the wall, and her being found with a cord in the tub wrapped around her throat.
Nikki and Antoine come back to the apartment, and they find Britney dead in the bathtub. And Kevin, very agitated, grabs Nikki, pulls her into the bedroom, rapes her, then strangles her.
Antoine decides to pick up the phone and call a friend of his out in Queens and tell him that Kevin is bugging out, he's attacking these girls, and I don't want to be a part of it, and I'm out of here.
They leave the apartment after taking the safe, some jewelry and some clothing, and they're seen by the super helper, Daniel Ramirez, downstairs, leaving the building. Kevin Ladson was there for sex. I think he killed Britney because he made sexual advances toward her and she refused. And it angered him, and he strangled her.
In March 1995, Kevin Ladson is convicted and given 40 years to life.
Ladson, there was something psychologically wrong with him. If it hadn't been this, it'd have been something else.
Antoine Adbury is sentenced to 7 to 21 years for burglary. But in a twist of fate, it becomes a life sentence.
Antoine ended up dying in prison in 2002. Antoine, I just think it was a person caught wrong place, wrong time.
In an attempt at closure, 20 years later, Karen Silas asks to meet with Kevin Ladson.
I wasn't a bit nervous going in. It was like, I'm supposed to do this. I started talking first and, told him that I didn't hate him, but I hated what he did to Nikki, what he did to us, how he changed so many lives, and how it affected so many lives. He said he made a big, stupid mistake. He wished he had never done it. He apologized many times for what he did to us. I truly believed he was remorseful. There was nothing cocky or put on about him. He was real. I came out of that prison like someone had taken a weight off my shoulder.
In this particular case, after it was all over with, I thought to myself, I said, how sad that they had to come to this fate.
Nikki, she'll be young forever. I think about her and think, would she be married? I think about her kids. If she had kids, I miss that that's not gonna be. But I still have a lot of blessings. That's what counts. It's not what's missing, it's what you have.